So while it is halftime between the US and Guyana, and the US leads 1-0, and it definitely has not been a very good performance by the US despite the fact that they're leading 1-0. I'm going to be talking about the 10 biggest surprises in MLS so far, and this is going to be a relatively quick video because I want to get back into watching the US and Guyana play in the second half. And since we're now halfway through the season, this is a good time to look at some of the biggest surprises that has happened in MLS so far. And there's no doubt that there are definitely a lot of big surprises. And the first big surprises so far in MLS is how open and bad the East is this season. I mean, coming into this season, everybody thought that Atlanta and the Red Bulls were going to be the team to beat in the East, and that, it was just kind of going to be a little bit open after that. Well, not only Atlanta and the Red Bulls are not even the top 2 team in the East, but they're not even the top 3 teams. I mean, the top 3 team right now in the East is actually Philly, Montreal, and DC. And who would have thought that would be your top 3 in the Eastern Conference as we hit into the halfway point? Now, the thing is, Atlanta and the Red Bulls are started to kind of pick it up. And this is where I'm also going to get to my second biggest surprise, is the fact that the Red Bulls and Atlanta has been having a roller coaster start of this season. I mean, both of these teams were literally, like, Atlanta, I think at one point was in the basement of the Eastern Conference, which, yeah, I don't think a lot of people would have thought that at any point of the season Atlanta would be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and they would be not only at the bottom in the Eastern Conference, but they would be bottom at there by week number 5 or week number 6. I mean, that was kind of really a big shock, and that there was a lot of talk about the fact that Frank de Boer should be fired from Atlanta United. But eventually they kind of did figure it out. It's the same thing with the Red Bulls. There was even rumor the fact that Chris Armas was going to be replaced by Thierry Henry. That rumor, of course, recently has died out, and now the Red Bulls are starting to perform again. So I have a feeling eventually Atlanta and the Red Bulls would get back up there. But the fact that, when you look how crazy the East is, and right now when you look at every team in the Eastern Conference, even the playoff teams that is in the Eastern Conference, you definitely have a lot of question to ask about each of those teams above the red line. I mean, with Philly, yes, they have moments where they play very beautiful soccer, but there's also moments they kind of struggle and just haven't really kind of figured it out in some of these games. And then you got Montreal, obviously without Piatti. You can already see how much struggle this team is started to show, and that it only go as far as this team without Piatti, and it only go as far as they can just continue to just bunker and continue to hopefully score a goal and snatch a goal in games so that they can continue to get points. It's only gonna take you so far until eventually the cracks is gonna show, and the cracks is definitely showing with Montreal, with them struggling in these last couple of games. And DC, same story. They have been struggling in the past couple of weeks, and miraculously, they're still third in the Eastern Conference right now. I mean, I don't think any DC fans would have thought that this team would be in third place right now, despite the fact that, the last couple of games, they have definitely not been playing like a team that is in the top 3. Now, moving on into my third biggest surprises in MLS so far, is that FC Cincinnati is on verge to become the worst expansion side ever. Now, I know that this might not sound a big surprise that FC Cincinnati is struggling in MLS, because we knew coming into this season with some of their signings that they have made, yeah, it was really questionable, and the fact that it seemed like they're just going to play this bunker style kind of way when they come to MLS, and that they don't really have a lot of goal scoring threat going forward. It makes me a little bit nervous, the fact that they're going to be kind of struggling in terms of scoring goal. I mean, there's going to be no doubt that they do well in terms of defending, but where in the world is the goals going to come from? Like, you need goals to win games. And right now, not only FC Cincinnati is still having that problem with goal scoring, but now it's the defense that is having problem. And this is why FC Cincinnati in these last couple of games, boy, things are just gone worse and worse with this team. Like, first, they cannot score a goal. They went on a stretch where they had like 6 games without scoring a goal, and now they're leaking goals too and just getting absolutely destroyed in a match. And that if this continue, and that if FC Cincinnati does not really, like, this summer is a big summer for them to trying to at least figure out how they can limit the damage. I mean, there's no doubt that I think this team is not going to make the playoffs, but just not to get absolutely embarrassed in the first ever MLS season, and that they could become the worst expansion side ever to play their expansion season. They need to really sort that out in the summer, and it really starts with the attack too. I really think that they need to get some attacking pieces, because as long as if they don't score goals, they are not gonna win games. Now, the 4 things that has been the biggest surprises is that the Quakes finally have an identity for the first time in years. And I guess as a Quakes fan, I'm putting that as the biggest surprise, mainly because, for the past couple of years, there has just been no identity with this team. But with this man-marking kind of identity that Mateus Almeida has put in this team, you can see how much it has really improved this team. I mean, I know for the first 4 games, it didn't really work out, and that's mainly because, this system has never been done with any MLS team. And, the players are probably very kind of unfamiliar with the system, so that's why it kind of took time. But once it started to effectively working, as we have seen in the past 2 months, you're seeing the result that is going to happen. Now, one thing I do worry about this man marking system is that since this is kind of a system that when a lot of teams are playing right now, that they have no idea how to. It seems like they have no idea how to stop them because they never seen this before. What happened if they seen it before, and that? What happened when we play those Western Conference team for the second time this season, and that they'll eventually start to figure it out? That is my big concern with this team. And the other big concern with this team is the defense. It's still not as good as I'm hoping for. Like, there's been times this season I've seen the defense have looked very leaky, and also the goalkeeper position too, where, Daniel Vega, he's been very inconsistent for us. He's had moments where he's been able to save us some games, and then he had the moment against FC Dallas, which he's just conceded a goal and literally let a back pass go through his leg and concede the first goal of the game. So that is something that we're going to have to probably address in the summer transfer window. I think there's no doubt that this team is probably not going to go for a defender because, I think we could need another attacker or another midfielder to kind of solidify us in terms of the attack. I mean, the attack is not bad, but there are times where it does kind of struggle a little bit, so that's why we're trying to get some of those pieces there. And it seemed like a lot of teams, whenever they go in the transfer window, they always tends to splash big in terms of an attacking piece player, and I think that's what the DP signing is going to be for the Quakes here in the summer. But hopefully in the summer too, we're going to find a couple of TAM defender, or even maybe find a goalkeeper, or just bring JT Marcinkowski up and do what we did last season when we decided to bring him up, and that, he's going to try to anchor the ship in terms of that goalkeeping position. Now, the 5th most surprising thing in MLS so far, and this, I was actually going to say that the Rapids, off to a historic bad start, was the biggest surprise of this season. But right now, that narrative kind of have changed. I mean, the biggest surprise is not really the historic bad start to the season that the Rapids have had, but it's the fact that they went from a historic bad start where they went 11 games without a win to start the season to now become a playoff contender in just 5 games. Like, the amount of quick turnaround and the way that the Rapids have just completely flipped the script in just a single month is just absolutely remarkable. Like, 5 games ago, when they were still in that historic bad kind of start of the season, nobody would have thought that this team would be anywhere close to being the playoffs. But now, heading into the Gold Cup break, and that they're only 4 points out of the playoffs, 4 points off of the playoffs, and that they have won 4 out of the 5 games ever since they were winless to start the season. Yeah, I mean, that really have shocked everybody, and I think maybe this is probably the biggest shocker so far this season, of the fact that the Rapids can just instantly turn things around after a bad start of the season. I mean, we've seen it before with MLS team when they get off to a bad stretch, and it doesn't really take much for your team to get through a bad stretch, but if you can get games, if you start winning games in a row, you're going to rise up to the table. And the Rapids are basically showing that right now. Although I definitely have not seen a team where they can go from being the very bottom of MLS to now being the hottest team in MLS and being a playoff contender team in just simply playing 5 games. I mean, that is just absolutely remarkable. The number 6 biggest surprise is that team playing in CCL is struggling this season. I don't know if this is kind of a surprise because, when you see teams that play in the CONCACAF Champions League in these past couple of seasons, you've seen that they have always tends to struggle in the league. I mean, last season with TFC almost winning the whole competition and they end up not making the playoffs. And this season, it's the case with the Red Bulls. They got off to a pretty poor start. Same with Atlanta United, got off to a pretty poor start. But the biggest point that you can tell teams that are playing in CCL is struggling this season has to be Sporting KC, who are really struggling this season. And I know a lot of that has to do with the fact that their entire squad just got depleted about a couple of weeks ago in this season. But man, it feels like SKC is like the TFC of last season, where they just gets decimated after their squad just gets decimated after when they go on a deep run in CCL. And that it just feels like right now, as much as a lot of teams want to play in the CONCACAF Champions League and want to become the first team to basically win the tournament as an MLS team, is it really worth it? I mean, you're going to get that struggle this season. I mean, the only team I can say that play in CCL but are not really struggling this season is Houston. And who would have thought that Houston, which we thought that they are the weakest MLS team to play in CCL, and the fact that they still, after CCL, they still look like one of the best team in the league, and that they're really the only exception besides all the other team that play in MLS. And I mean, even TFC, I know early on they were kind of an exception, but you're now start to see the problems that this team has. And it feels like the first couple of games that TFC were playing were kind of a little bit of a fluke before, the real problem is started to kind of come back, and that TFC is basically revert back to the form that they were in CCL when they embarrassingly got knocked out by Independiente. The 7th biggest surprise is that Carlos Vela could break MLS goal scoring record, and who would have thought that we could be on verge of the second season in a row where we will see a player score the most goal ever in MLS. Last season it was Joseph Martinez, and we were wowed by the goal scoring kind of run that he's on. But with what Vela has been doing this season, I mean, he is definitely on pace of breaking the record. And what's even more impressive about Vela is that Vela is not only scoring goals, but he's also assisting goals. Like, he is basically creating and scoring goals at the same time. Joseph Martinez last season, he was really mainly just scoring goals, and that, Miguel Almiron is the guy that provides the ball to him, and every time that happens, he basically puts it into the back of the net. Whereas Carlos Vela, he's basically doing it all by himself. Like, he's scoring goals and he also assisting goals. And maybe that is the one thing that I am a little bit worried about Vela, with the fact that he's kind of doing it all for his team. Eventually, there's going to be drawbacks, and that there's going to be pushback eventually where there's going to be time where he's going to like, it's incredible the fact that he is the way that he is scoring right now, and that he's also assisting goals. I mean, that kind of rate, you usually never would see a guy can go in such a rate where he can score a ton of goals but also assist a ton of goals too. So there's gonna be at times where there's gonna be a pushback. And I'm hoping if he does break that record, maybe that pushback comes in terms of assisting. Although at the same time, when you look at that LAFC team, the guy that is the main guy that is creating the goals was really Carlos Vela, and that LAFC team doesn't really kind of have that Miguel Almiron kind of player that just gives the ball to Vela to score the goal. So that's something that I will see if if that of course happens, where if there's going to be any pushback, and that there's going to be times where this incredible form that Carlos Vela has been in is started to kind of dip a little bit. I mean, we saw it with last season with Joseph Martinez. Once he broke that record, he started to have his form dip. Is it going to happen with Carlos Vela too? Because so far when we saw pretty much every single in MLS, I don't think I've ever seen a player able to sustain the best form that you ever seen a player sustain throughout the entire season. Every player always tends to have that dip, and right now it is incredible the fact that Vela throughout this first half of the season, he still haven't shown that dip that I kind of maybe would expect that it's gonna come sooner or later before the end of the season. The eighth biggest surprise is that Wondo, of course, break the MLS record. Now, that's not the biggest surprise. The biggest surprise is that he break the record by scoring 4 goals, which is the most goals he have ever scored in a game. I mean, we knew that he was going to break the record, but we didn't know that he was going to do it in probably the most improbable and incredible fashion you will ever see a player breaks a record. Like, we were hoping when he breaks the MLS record, he probably just score a penalty, or if he just score a nice goal to break the record. And the goal that he scored that breaks the record, I don't think a lot of people will remember that as one of the best goal ever to basically cap off him being the undisputed goal king of MLS. I mean, that was just a goalkeeping mistake, the reason why Wondo scored that goal and become the undisputed MLS goal scoring king. But the fact that he ended up scoring 4 goals in that game, and the fact that he didn't score any goals coming into that game and instantly score 4 and just carry the team off his back, I mean, it is just so vintage Wondo, and it's so vintage Quakes of the fact that Wondo, for many years, he's been carrying this team, and he has done it once again. So that was a really big shocker for this season. Now, the 9th biggest surprise this season is that Seattle, of course, get off to a great start, and, I just had to put that in there just because, Seattle has always been known as a team that always tends to get off to a bad start, but eventually they pick it up because they have that crazy resurgence. This year it's different. They kind of got off to a great start. They have started to drop off a little bit, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that their squad is pretty much dismantled by national team call-up and also injuries. But I have no doubt that Seattle will be back to being a very good team, and that they're probably going to have their crazy second half resurgence again and finish near the top of the Western Conference. And the final biggest surprise in MLS so far is that Bruce Arena is back coaching in MLS, and I think this has also got to be one of the biggest surprises in MLS so far. Like, I don't think anyone in the beginning of the season thought that Bruce Arena was going to make his return in coaching. We thought that in that US versus Trinidad and Tobago game, we thought that was the end of the line. There was no way, like the way that he just completely put a national shame on the national team. I didn't think he was ever going to get a coaching job. But yet, somehow, in some way, one of the MLS team, which it turns out to be the New England Revolution, decided to roll the dice and try to see if Bruce Arena got any magic left to basically revive a team in MLS. And, it's going to be interesting to see if he can do it. I mean, he just took over the New England Revolution. He got his first win with New England, ironically against the team that he last coached, which is before his national team reign with the LA Galaxy. And yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see whether or not if Bruce Arena has one more kind of magic left in his sleeve, or the fact that it feels like Bruce Arena he's been really just kind of he's pretty, the game has really kind of passed him, and that the tactics that he's trying to put in MLS right now just does not work anymore with the way that MLS is kind of like in a 3.0 stage. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think is the biggest surprise in this list, or if there's any biggest surprise that I didn't mention on this list. Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.